It's good, YouTube. Cardfight King here, Aqua Life, baby. You already know how it is. So today, guys, I wanted to just more or less talk about, I guess, my experience at the most recent DMV Dynasty Cup. In this video. Now, I did not play in the event. I did win the last event, but I did not play in this event for reasons, and I'll explain those before I get into more or less the meat of it, the experience portion of it. Now, I was part of the judging crew for the tournament. Now, one of the reasons why I chose to not play in this tournament is because it's just a number of factors that leading up to this tournament interfered with it. One of them being that I personally didn't even know that the tournament was still on for this Saturday. In fact, I had taken it out of all of my calendars and schedulings and things of that nature. Because when the tournament was made, it was made like more or less the beginning portions of summer, and then over summer flood happened, store shut down for a while. We didn't know it was open. There was just a lot of questions up in the air. Then it reopened, but we're talking about having certain events just canceled until further notice and blah blah blah. But apparently, the shop opened, but then apparently, I guess the tournament was still on for it, and I didn't find out until like Monday afternoon while I was in class. I just saw a message from one of my teammates, was like, "Yeah, you're going to the Dynasty Cup." I was like, "Wait, what?" There was that factor that, again, I was, which also translates to this portion, was that personally, and whether you agree with it or not, I did not feel prepared for the tournament. I did not feel mentally ready for this tournament in terms of matchup knowledge, what I wanted to do. I haven't played. Since the last Dynasty Cup we had, I believe it was in like at the end of July or August, whatever. After I won that one with Chaos, and you guys can go see the video if you want to see the deck profile of that. I really haven't played Vanguard much since then. I've been focusing on school, and you guys, I generally say that's why it's like sparingly, the videos have been a little bit more sporadic recently, and so because I haven't played much, and I really have not paid too much attention to it. I've never played against Domination. I've never I've seen it in action. I just didn't know what things did and blah blah blah. I haven't played against the new Zodiac Time Beast. Just a lot of factors. My lack of knowledge of things and meta. I knew the general idea of decks. For the meta, but I didn't know about them. I just had general knowledge, and so then the tournament was this Saturday, which was the day after set 12 releases. So there, people who got their cases in from Sneak Peek or cases in, and they had Sneak Peek and things like that. They had their set 12 decks ready, and I was like, I don't know anything. So personally, I did not feel mentally prepared. And then when I did play test, and the decks that I play obviously haven't been supported in over a year, and the decks that I feel that I own, that I feel I can competitively play, are either Chaos or Blue Waves or Thavis currently right now. And I dropped Bermuda, and I had to sell my Night Rose deck as well, and it helped me pay for certain medical things. Now, I was playtesting with the decks. I played against like the new Dark Irregulars, Blade Wings, and Shaharlet. I played against. I played against Luard pre-Drag Strider, whatever it is, or not pre-Drag Strider, just with Drag Strider, more or less the night before. I tried to just get on, and then I got on Area for a little bit, and the evolution of like the better decks in the game, like blasters and stuff, from set 11 translating to set 12, more or less exceeded the point where my decks are. Where, not saying that, I mean, I'm no scrub, and I can, I can take a few games off, but I was not consistently, being, the decks have gotten a lot more tools to help them deal with other problems, like the new the Drag Strider Luard, possibly, Gear Next, and just darker regulars in general actually have a pretty strong matchup against Chaos in retrospect to their newfound center column pressure, as well as other units that help them achieve certain other functions. Aqua Force is obviously being outpaced. I mean, I can still steal some games with Wailing Thavis and a strong Lambros turn, here and there, but sometimes, if the get off is too slow, or if my field, gets a little bit controlled, or I can't handle a certain barrage of attacks on a consistent basis, then I just found it extremely hard with the current support right now to not to deal with it, but to consistently deal with, the better decks, the blasters, Luard, ZTBs, and things like that. I just found it very difficult to do this. So what I want to do was, through judging and seeing and interacting with players and and everybody else from a different perspective than I would if I was an actual player in the tournament, because you guys know I'm hella competitive anyways. I took this as an opportunity, for me trying to be reintegrated into the Vanguard scene around here. I took this as an opportunity to learn about these decks, play test with them, play with other people's decks obviously, and play test against them in different strategies, watching other games and seeing how they played and whatnot, and how their matchup gives them what tendencies, what player tendencies are with these decks and so forth. So I took this experience not only as a judge to learn about, to interact with players in different ways, see the tournament from a different view, but also as a competitive player, for me to get a new perspective on the decks, what's being run, and how they're being used, what they're being played for, what their tendencies are against certain other things. So definitely, I felt as if it was a good decision to not play in this tournament. Again, not being mentally prepared. School's been taking up majority of my time and things of that nature. Now, after that explanation, because I know some people want to know, the tournament was fun. It was very fun. I saw a lot of interesting things. Dominate is an extremely fun deck. I got to play around with that a bit. I got to play with a Night Rose deck against the Ward, and you guys can go on the Dynasty Cup YouTube page and see that. It was just one game during the intermission after top 8 was announced. So it was it was pretty fun, getting back into it. And I'm probably going to jump to top 8, but I'll tell you, I saw, there was a Night Rose deck, but my boy Nick, who plays up at Superstar Card Games in Parkville, Maryland, he, to me, is possibly the best Genesis player that I've seen in the area in a long time. And I know that he's been a Genesis player for a long time, and whatnot, but I generally had thought Wiseman was like more or less the better Genesis deck, only when Amaruda's not exactly competitive in a sense. She's whatever with confusion, but again, what he did was he opened my eyes to, like, yes, Amaruda might not be as popular as Wiseman is, because you just loop someone to death if you can get it off and whatnot, but he was ending people on a second stride with Amaruda and Ishtar powering up units. If you don't drive check any triggers, then you're restanding your units and getting more attacks in at high power. If you are checking triggers and your opponent's like, well, dang. He went undefeated with Amaruda, I believe, throughout the entire Swiss. It was very eye-opening. I had my predisposition about it, and the way that he played it against various matchups, Luard, Dark Irregulars, Blasters, and things like that, Gears, opened up my eyes to it. Domination Domination didn't do so well. I believe. Night Rose didn't make it to top 8. Trying to think of any other decks I saw there. No, the rest was pretty much Blasters, ZTB, and Luard were, I guess, were the majority decks that were being represented at the tournament. Now top eight was 2 Blasters, 2 ZTB, 1 Dark Irregular Shaharlet, that was Black Steve, 1 Dimensional Police deck. It was a D-Robo deck with Zeal Engine, for I guess for early game purposes. 1 Luard, and then again, like I said, my boy Nick playing Amaruta Genesis in top 8. Now in top 8, the Blasters fought each other. It was a mirror match, so obviously Blasters won that. Luard beat one of the ZTBs, so we have Blasters and Luard in top 4 already. Dimensional Robos beat. Black Steve lost with his Shaharlet deck to the D-Robos. He lost in time. There's time top 8. And let me know if you guys think that time in top is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just gauging interest for that. Personally, for me, as a player, I don't like time in top. I think that when you get to top, that's, the time where you're really, taking in the fatigue from the tournament. You really want to make sure your movements are, your plays are key. But I am against slow playing, and I hate slow playing. So don't get me wrong, I don't think time should be topped, and I see a cause for it is to, I guess, help reduce slow playing, but slow playing could also backfire in that respect where, in time you can slow play to where you're in time. And not saying anyone slow played, not accusing anyone of that, but that's just how I feel about top 8. Now back to it. Black Steve lost in top 8. The Zeal had the Dimensional Robo. The Zeal engine early game kind of shut down Shaharlet, because Shaharlet, is more of when I get to grade 3, I can do things type of deck, because it's a stride deck. So he couldn't win in that regard, because by the time they got to game 3, they were in turns, and he wasn't able to stride and execute any functions more or less of his deck. Whereas Zeal was able to work without, with no restrictions in a sense. And then Amaruta, the Nigga Amaruta player who was undefeated in Swift, he lost to ZTB. He lost because when I saw it, it was a gear next. Nick had 2 damage with like 6 or 7 cards in hand. He had 1 heal trigger in hand for a G guarding, but he didn't have a sentinel or really anything else to guard with. And the guy went into gear next was at 4 damage, but he had double of the goat stand trigger. That's like the Flogal clone, basically, in a sense, for ZTBs. He had this ox on the field that apparently gains a bunch of power in gear next. Basically Nick was like, "Oh, I have to guard 1," but he chose to take the gear next things because the ox, and the gear player ended up checking 2 crits and a heal or something like that, and so if he had guarded gear next fully, he wouldn't have been able to handle 3 attacks from the ox. So. And because the ox would have had a crit applied to it and would have been able to swing in 3 times, and he did not have the shielding available to guard against that. So it was just a really powerful gear next turn, assisted by critical triggers. And then top 4, it was Blasters versus Blaster. I believe it was Blasters versus D-Robo. No, Blasters versus Luard. Yeah. No, Blasters versus one of the ZTB player. Yeah, that's what it was. Blasters versus ZTB. Blasters won. Then D Robo won against Luard, and then top two. Blasters won top two. So Blasters won the tournament in total. So my boy Jamal won. So yeah, it was actually pretty interesting to see, see a tournament from a different perspective. Play testing with the new decks. I really enjoy New Batama. I was definitely thinking about investing in them. I just think that they're a pretty fun deck. I think they're a really solid deck. I played against Blade Wings, and he stacked his soul up to like 21, 22 cards, and I was able to like dominate his field with like Mugen Lord. First, Shiranui Oboro, and then Mugen Lord. So that's like 5, and he had like 4 rear guards. So that was like 5 attacks just from his own rear guards, killing that, big soul that he had. Plus, he probably had, he either took damage or had to throw some out to guard. So those little poke attacks, and then the attacks from my turn from like Furai, who got a bunch of power, and that other sword dragon that Soul Blasts and draws, plus my Vanguard attack was definitely a little bit much for the Blade Wings. So it was very fun, and I'm definitely going to look into this deck because I like it. I think it's definitely I think I would agree it's definitely a solid tier 2 deck that has the potential to beat a lot of the tier 1 decks, but it's just going to take I guess a lot more strategy and planning and whatnot, and I would have to look into the deck more. But yeah, really like new Batamas, like new Narukami stuff, obviously. I'm going to try building that over the next few weeks. I have the Dragon Ball Super set 2 coming out soon, so... But yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think again about top 8 time in top 8. And yeah. Alright, Cardfight King, Aqua Life baby. You already know how it is. We at ya.